Impossible. Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out the song that was nearly impossible to record.
Fairytale of New York is often ranked as the greatest Christmas song of all time.
Hang on. But like 2 minutes ago, I just finished recording a video about the top 10 British Christmas songs, Christmas number ones, and this song was the number one. I didn't know this was that. But okay. Fairytale of New York. I learned that it was named that because it was named after a book. Okay,
Fairytale of New York is often ranked as the greatest Christmas song of all time. But the story behind it is one of the most interesting. It started as a bet that they couldn't write a Christmas song. There were then 2 years of troubled production attempts.
Metallica shirt.
But finally, they were able to make something magical. And for this video, I'm joined by the producer of the song, Steve Lillywhite, to learn about how the song was recorded and how after 2 years of difficulty, it finally all came together.
Y'all, I've met Steve Lillywhite in the kitchen of a recording studio. He was very nice, very kind man, very talented. So someone dared them they couldn't write a Christmas song. Same thing happened to Slade. The guitar player in Slade's grandma said, you can't write a Christmas song like White Christmas. And then he did, and it became like the best one. I'm not familiar with this song.
Certainly with me, I never realized how good it was when I was working on it.
But the drama began before Steve was even involved, and for a song that centers around an argument, it's no surprise that there's even disagreement about how it began, 2 years earlier. According to the Pogues accordion player, James Fernley, it was suggested that they should cover the band's Christmas Must Be Tonight.
Very caring good life. This must be Christmas, must be tonight.
The Pogues replied, that's an awful song. But frontman Shane MacGowan elaborates on this story by saying that Elvis Costello, who was their producer at the time...
That's not all he said.
The Pogues
he said, it was an awful song. We probably said, that, we can do our own.
Replied, that's an awful song. But frontman Shane MacGowan elaborates on this story by saying that Elvis Costello, who was their producer at the time, wagered that they wouldn't even be able to write a Christmas song. Either way, the Pogues set out to write a Christmas hit. And James Fernley explains how the writing process began.
Jem had been writing a melody for the verses, Shane for the introduction part and the chorus, about a seafaring type.
This explains one of the most distinctive characteristics of the song, which is its unique structure. A slow opening before building to the main upbeat section. This structure stayed in place for the final song, but Jem's wife suggested a different idea for the dialogue.
What happens at Christmas a lot of the time, people argue. So let's have somebody arguing. Christmas isn't a happy time for a lot of people.
Oh,
the structure and argument is clear even from the first demo, where it seems to instantly cut between the two sections. If you listen to some more of this early demo, something else that you might notice is that it features a different female vocalist. Their bass player at the time, Cot O'Riordan. They made several attempts to record the song with Cot and Shane on vocals and Costello producing, but they were never happy with the result. Unhappy?
I can see why they were unhappy with that. It sounds like they don't want to be singing it. They sound like nah.
Unhappy with the recordings they had, Christmas 1985 came and went, and the song was shelved to be recorded again the next year. But this was when a number of problems started to unfold. Firstly, their record label went into administration, and because the label owned the rights to any future Pogues recordings, they had to negotiate in order to be able to release anything. And soon after, difficulties in the band also led to a falling out with Elvis Costello. Costello was also dating their bassist and female singer Cot O'Riordan, And so Cott also parted ways, and the song had lost its female
That'll
singer.
do it. Don't dip your wick in the company wax. Is that what they say? Don't eat where you Is that what it is? I don't remember the saying, but you guys know it.
Parted ways, and the song had lost its female singer. But in 1987, 2 years after the song was first written, the financial problems at the record label were resolved, and the band were able to enter the studio again to begin working on the new album.
Okay.
This time with producer Steve Lillywhite.
Fairytale of New York was just one of 12 songs that we were cutting. So it wasn't like, we were doing it on its own. We'd work on that, and then we'd go and do something on another song, and then we'd come back. So we were, because you don't do one song, finish it, another song, finish it. You work on all of them at the same time.
Right.
And with producer Steve, they began.
Yeah, he's right. So you got a batch of songs, usually do like basic tracking for all of them, like get the drums for all of them, and then maybe overdub a little bass if you got it, or guitars or whatever. You start building it up. He's right, y'all. He's right. Y'all know that. Y'all know how records are made, right? I feel like everybody knows that. Everybody knows that.
Another song, finish it. You work on all of them at the same time.
And with producer Steve, they began resolving a number of issues one by one.
Well, first off, the band said, we've always had trouble recording this song because we can never transition from the first part of the song into the second part of the song when we've tried to record it. And I went, well, that's really easy. Yeah. All you have to do, we'll concentrate on getting the first part of the song right, and then we'll do the second part of the song separate. I've got the razor blade. Yeah. I can cut the tape, and I can join the two together. Now, that sounds like, a really simple thing, but the fact is, no one had said that to them, so they went, oh, yeah, of course. So
I guess Elvis Costello didn't understand that. Or, Elvis Costello, it sounded like he reveled in them not being able to do it right. He dared them that they couldn't do a Christmas song, so when they were having trouble with that transition, he probably knew they could edit it, but he just didn't mention it because he wanted them to fail. Not cool.
So they went, oh, yeah, of course. So straight off, this big sort of problem that they had in their heads about recording this song was gone. So we really concentrated on the opening couple of verses, which is just, at the time it was piano played by James Fernley, the accordion player, and Shane singing.
Way to go, Steve.
Christmas Eve, babe, and the drunk time.
I had to listen so hard to what he was doing, and I had to practice and practice and practice to get my part right before we even went into the studio. I'd never done so much practicing on anything.
Huh.
So, once we worked on that, then the band could go, now we've got this much smaller part. It was just psychologically, there was like something was lifted from them.
The next problem they had was finding a female.
Yeah. He's a good producer. Very good producer. Way to go, Steve.
There was like something was lifted from them.
The next problem they had was finding a female vocalist. So Shane sang through a rough vocal, and then Steve took the recording home and worked on a vocal with his wife, Kirsty.
Well, Shane did his vocal first, and then I took the tape home, and I had a studio at home when I was living with Kirsty. We were married, and she did her vocal, and we spent a long time really, getting her vocal right. I mean, we did it over a weekend, and there's not a hell of a lot of lines there, so we could really concentrate on getting each one exactly how it should be, and the harmonies and all that. And then we took it back, and then when Shane heard it, he realized that his vocal was not good enough, so he then sung to Kirsty. So it was Shane first, then Kirsty, then Shane again. So in a way they did sing it together, in a strange way, because they could hear the other. They could both hear the other person when they were singing it. I mean, Kirsty sung to a slightly inferior Shane vocal, but then Shane sung to the finished Kirsty vocal. Okay. And I mean, I can't really think of anyone else doing it better, to be honest, than either of them.
Steve appeared to be the first person who could enable them to find the magic in the song. So I asked him how he approached working with the Pogues.
Well, you get them in early. You record the
Before they
things
start
that
drinking.
need to be done with a clear head early, and then the more creative stuff can be done later after there's been a little bit of recreation, let me put it that way. So that works with most people. It doesn't work with a true bohemian, and Shane MacGowan was a true bohemian. So if you got him in early, it didn't mean he'd just woken up. He was an amazing personality, amazing person. He would sleep when he was tired, and he would get up when it was time to get up. He whether it was 9 a.m, 9 o'clock at night, midnight. So I had to, had to gauge when Shane was feeling good to do a vocal.
Wow.
And so I was always keeping an eye on him to see, because sometimes he was not really in the mood, and other times he was raring to go. So I would stop everyone else and say, okay, time, let's do some vocals. That's the way you sort of steer the ship, but there are instruments in that band I'd never recorded. I'd never recorded accordion. I'd never recorded a cittern, penny whistle, never on any records I'd ever done. So it was a learning process for me on how to keep the power. And there's really no electric guitar, but that band, when they play live, they were so powerful that I knew my job was to get that power on a record. And Fairytale isn't really that sort of a song, but there's other songs they do that are really, really, really powerful and very strong.
After 2 years of trying to make it...
Wow, that's a good producer, y'all. What patience, And to be monitoring the singer, like, okay, now's a good time to do the vocal. He's in a good mood, let's do it now. Nice.
Really powerful and very strong.
After 2 years of trying to make it work, Steve and the Pogues had finally finished the song. So I asked what he thought made this possible.
If you are a good producer, and I've had my moments, you're always looking for those magical times and trying to like put them in a bottle and sell them. That's what you're trying to do. And a lot of that is allowing the artists to be everyone has their own different way of working. I'm just talking about my way of working. Is allowing the artists to be comfortable with what they do and allowing them to understand that I am a safe pair of hands, that they can do what they want. And they know, well, Steve knows what he's doing. And he, not to be nervous about what they're doing, but also not to be complacent about what they're doing, to have that balance between, between feeling confident and, but basically having fun. Because my sort of rule is when an artist is playing live, they don't analyze what they're doing.
The song was released in 1987, a couple of months before the rest of the album.
Wow. Yeah. Something that comes to mind is the difference between Steve Lillywhite and Elvis Costello for the band. It's probably huge. Because Elvis Costello was he was a rock star himself, So it's probably like, I can't imagine Elvis Costello swallowing his pride in order to cater to the singer and doing vocals right when the singer wanted to do them. He was probably, I'm Elvis Costello, so I'm producing this. Let's do vocals right now. It's about me, It's probably a very different power dynamic happening.
The rule is when an artist is playing live, they don't analyze what they're doing.
The song was released in 1987, a couple of months before the rest of the album, and the Pogues had their first attempt at a Christmas song.
In Britain, we have this incredible history of all our major pop stars all wanting to aim for the Christmas number one, with the Slade and the Wizard and even Paul McCartney, George Michael. Everyone has made Elton John. They all throw their hat in the ring and say, I want to have, and it wasn't for the money, it was for the kudos of having the Christmas number one, you know, and to write a, you know, I mean, Wizard and Slade, and they were not, it's not like American cheesy Christmas records, you know. I don't particularly like those, although, you know, they're very nice to hear them occasionally at Christmas, but you know, give me Wizard, give me Slade, give me even Chris Rea. I love that song, you know, Driving Home for Christmas. That just makes me feel warm and happy inside, you know. So, you know, we have such a great history of great Christmas records, and I'm very proud to have been involved in actually 2 of them, because I was the assistant engineer on Wizard. I wish it could be Christmas every day.
With the song released nearly 4...
Wow. Yo, I was an assistant engineer. It's not an easy job. Good for him. He was doing that back in the 70s. That's awesome. Way to go, Steve. I just think he's great if you can't tell.
With the song released nearly 40 years ago now, I asked Steve how he reflected on the song today.
Certainly with me, I never realized how good it was when I was working on it. I mean, if you'd said at the time, I'd go, well, I love Bottle of Smoke. I love If I Should Fall from Grace with God. I love Fiesta. And I love Fairytale of New York, you know. So, and I still think most people, when they hear Fairytale for the first time, it's not like, wow, I love that song. But they probably hear it enough to go, I'll listen to it again, or when it comes on again. And which is why it's lasted so long, because it's like it grows on you. And for me, I much prefer records that grow on you than records that are a fast burn, you know, like I don't think I've ever really been that good at doing instant pop singles, you know, like the Stock Aitken, you know, Waterman, all those, you know, they're great. And that's an art form in itself. But I've always thought that the records I like to make need more than one listen, but have enough on the first listen to, you know, I like to reel them in, you know. And the more you hear something, the more you hear the different layers and the things that are in there that keep you excited about it. And certainly with Fairytale of New York, it's the song that does that, you know, because what's the chorus? The boys of the NYPD choirs, like 10 seconds, you know. It's not like a chorus, but it's yeah, but it works.
Something else that's unique about this...
He's great. Way to go, Steve. Merry Christmas, Steve.
Something else that's unique about this song is that there was only ever one live recording with Shane and Kirsty, and Steve has recently worked on that recording to make it ready to be released.
You know, they never did sing it together. The only time they did sing it together, weirdly, in that era, was on the live version that we did, which was quite something, actually. Which someone found recently, and I sort of fixed that up to make it sound as good.
Thank you so much to Steve for his time. I don't usually do interviews like this on this channel, but he was so friendly and so kind. So if you enjoyed this kind of thing, let me know in the comments. And if there's anyone watching who has an interesting story to tell and might want to be in a video, get in touch.
Oh, look, y'all. The Slade video showed up. Watch it. I just love Steve Lillywhite. I wish he was more well known, you know? I'm not sure he gets the credit he deserves. Anyway, that's fascinating. Show me on a favela. I can hear what he means about the female vocals. They're very tight. They're like perfectly rhythmically and pitch-wise perfect. So I can see why, I forgot the Pogues singer's name, Ian? I don't remember what it is. I can see why he wanted to go back and sing it. Get it tight. Okay. Yes. So the title of this video is the song that was nearly impossible to record. Why was it nearly impossible to record? Because of Elvis Costello's ego. Y'all be sure to go to David Hartley and like and subscribe. I'd like to thank my patrons. I'd like to thank my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see y'all next time. Later. Steve Lillywhite and the motherfucker.